When Daniel Crawford's cheating wife snapped, "Don't scold my daughters, take care of your own," during their explosive kitchen argument, she had no idea the successful businessman standing before her, the man she'd betrayed for years, actually owned the entire pharmaceutical corporation where her lover clocked in every morning. But what she truly didn't know, what would shatter her world completely, was that Daniel had already discovered the devastating truth about those three daughters she'd just claimed weren't his to discipline. The daughters he'd raised, loved, and provided for through endless, sleepless nights and proud school performances. The daughters whose DNA tests now sat locked in his office safe, proving beyond doubt they belonged to his former best friend, her lover, Richard Hayes. His cheating wife thought she'd hidden her affair perfectly, manipulating her husband's trust while building a secret life with the senior chemist who worked 3 floors below Daniel's executive suite. She thought her carefully constructed lies would hold forever. But how would this cheating wife react when her husband revealed he owned the company her lover worked for? What would she do when Daniel showed her the termination papers already signed? And what shocking move had Daniel planned that would leave his cheating wife facing consequences she never imagined possible? Would the lover keep his job, his reputation, his future? Would the wife keep the comfortable life she'd built on betrayal? Or would the company owner's next decision change everything forever? Daniel Crawford's hands trembled as he gripped the DNA test results, the clinical paper crackling in the suffocating silence of his home office. 42 years old, CEO of Crawford Pharmaceuticals, a self-made millionaire who'd built his company from nothing, and none of it mattered anymore. The numbers on the page blurred through his tears, each percentage of non-paternity a knife twisting deeper. Emma, 12 years old, Lily, 9, Sophie, 6. 0% probability of paternity. All 3 girls, all 3. The elaborate mahogany desk he'd commissioned to celebrate Crawford Pharmaceuticals' 10th anniversary suddenly felt like a monument to his stupidity. Every award lining the walls, every framed photo of him with the mayor, the governor, pharmaceutical industry leaders, all of it mocked him now. He'd conquered the business world while losing everything that actually mattered. His mind spiraled backward through 15 years of marriage to Jennifer, rewinding through thousands of moments he'd misread completely. He remembered the night he'd proposed on that San Francisco pier, how the fog had rolled in just as she'd said yes, how perfectly romantic it had seemed. They'd married 6 months later in a ceremony his mother had called rushed, a warning he'd ignored. Jennifer had been 23, beautiful, working as a pharmaceutical sales representative. He'd been 27, already climbing the executive ladder at someone else's company, dreaming of starting his own venture. The affair must have started early. The timeline sickened him. Emma had been born just 11 months after the wedding. He'd thought it romantic, his eager young wife, so ready to start their family. Now he understood. Jennifer had likely been pregnant on their wedding day, carrying another man's child down the aisle. Richard Hayes, his best friend since college, his former roommate, the guy who'd been his best man, the godfather to all 3 girls. Daniel's stomach lurched, forcing him to lean over the mahogany wastebasket his secretary had given him last Christmas. Nothing came up but bile and the bitter taste of 15 years of lies. The evidence had accumulated slowly over the past 6 months, each piece adding to the devastating picture. It had started with something small, a receipt for a hotel room in Portland, on a day Jennifer claimed she'd been visiting her sister in Seattle. Daniel had noticed it crumpled in her purse while searching for his car keys. He'd almost dismissed it as a mistake, but something about Jennifer's defensive reaction when he'd casually mentioned it had set off alarms he'd previously silenced. Then came the burner phone he'd found hidden in her gym bag, filled with messages so explicit they'd made him physically ill. "Can't wait until he's traveling again. The girls are at soccer practice until 6. I need you." The most recent message was from 2 days ago. The private investigator's photos had confirmed everything. Jennifer and Richard entering hotels during Daniel's business trips. Jennifer and Richard having lunch at restaurants 40 miles outside town where they thought no one would recognize them. Jennifer and Richard kissing in his car outside the elementary school where Sophie attended first grade. But the DNA tests were the final, crushing truth. Daniel had collected samples carefully, hair from their brushes, used drinking glasses, and sent them to 3 separate laboratories to be absolutely certain. All 3 labs had returned identical results. Emma, Lily, and Sophie were not his biological children. Daniel stood and walked to the window overlooking his property, 3 acres of manicured lawn, the pool house, the tennis court. He'd built this life through 18-hour workdays, through risks that had terrified him, through sacrifices his wife would never understand. And she'd filled it with another man's children while convincing Daniel they were his legacy. The worst part was how much he loved them. Emma with her fierce intelligence and soccer trophies. Lily with her artistic talent and terrible jokes. Sophie with her infectious laugh and the way she still held his hand in parking lots. They called him Daddy. They ran to him when they got hurt. They saved their best artwork for his office walls. His phone buzzed. Jennifer calling for the 3rd time. He'd been hiding in his office for 2 hours since arriving home from the final lab. She didn't know yet. She had no idea the foundation of her deception was about to crumble. Daniel looked at the second folder on his desk, the one containing information she'd never anticipated. As CEO of Crawford Pharmaceuticals, he had certain resources. He'd spent the morning reviewing personnel files, specifically the employment records of one Richard Hayes, senior chemist hired 8 years ago, salary $147,000 annually, benefits package worth another $40,000. Richard had no idea who he'd been working for. The company had grown so large, over 800 employees now, that the lab scientists rarely interacted with executive leadership. Richard clocked in, ran his experiments, published his research papers, and collected his checks, never realizing his best friend's betrayal was funding his comfortable lifestyle. Daniel opened his laptop and pulled up the security camera footage from the building. There, Richard's blue Honda pulling into the parking garage at 8:47 this morning. The camera captured him in profile, looking tired but content. A man without guilt, without consequences, living his double life without fear. But that was about to change. Daniel had already drafted the termination paperwork, signed it. Tomorrow morning, Richard Hayes would arrive at work to find his access badge deactivated and security waiting to escort him to HR for immediate dismissal. No explanation, no discussion, just the end of his career at Crawford Pharmaceuticals. The confrontation happened at dinner, as these things often do. Jennifer had made pot roast, Daniel's supposed favorite, though he couldn't remember the last time he'd actually enjoyed it. The girls chattered about their day while Jennifer served plates, playing the role of devoted wife with practiced ease. Emma was complaining about her science teacher. Mrs. Peterson assigned this impossible project about genetic inheritance. We have to chart our family traits and figure out dominant and recessive genes. It's so boring. Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. Jennifer's eyes shot to him, some instinct sensing danger. The girls fell silent, sensing the sudden tension. Genetic inheritance, Daniel repeated slowly. That sounds fascinating, actually. You should definitely complete that project, Emma. Very educational. Daniel, Jennifer started, but he cut her off. In fact, I have some interesting information about genetic inheritance, about traits passed from parents to children, about which traits can and cannot be inherited. He pulled the folded papers from his jacket pocket and laid them beside his plate. About paternity, Jennifer's face drained of color. Girls, go to your rooms. But we haven't finished, Lily began. Now! Jennifer's voice cracked like a whip. The girls scrambled from the table, frightened by their mother's tone. Emma threw Daniel a worried glance before disappearing up the stairs. Jennifer remained frozen, staring at the papers. Daniel unfolded them slowly, ceremoniously. 3 DNA tests, 3 children. 0% probability of paternity for all 3. Daniel, please. How long? His voice was eerily calm. How long have you been sleeping with Richard? She flinched at the name. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. 15 years, Jennifer. 15 years of lies. You walked down the aisle pregnant with his child. You let me cut the umbilical cord thinking Emma was mine. You accepted my tears of joy when Lily was born. You watched me hold Sophie for the first time, watched me promise to protect her forever, and you knew. You always knew. Jennifer's face twisted with something between guilt and defiance. You were never home. You were always at that damn company, always working, always prioritizing everything over us. So you fucked my best friend and passed his children off as mine? Daniel's calm shattered. That's your justification. I worked too much building a company to support this family. A family that was never actually mine? They are your family. You raised them. Biology doesn't... Don't. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Don't you dare tell me biology doesn't matter after what you've done. You made that choice for me. You stole 15 years of my life. Jennifer's hands trembled. What are you going to do? I'm going to burn down the pretty little world you built on lies. Daniel stood, gathering the papers. And I'm starting with Richard. What does that mean? It means your lover is about to learn an interesting fact. You know Crawford Pharmaceuticals? The company that's been paying his salary for 8 years? The company that funds his research, his benefits, his comfortable middle-class existence? Daniel smiled without warmth. I own it. I'm the CEO Richard has never met because he's 3 floors below my office. Irrelevant, except for the paycheck I sign. Jennifer's eyes widened with genuine shock. You wouldn't. I already have. Termination papers are signed. Tomorrow morning, Richard's career at Crawford Pharmaceuticals ends. His reputation in the pharmaceutical industry ends with it. I'll make sure every company in the sector knows exactly why he was terminated. That's illegal. You can't fire someone for personal reasons. I can fire an at-will employee for violating company ethics policies. Specifically, the policy about not engaging in relationships that create conflicts of interest or compromise professional judgment. Richard's judgment was compromised the moment he started sleeping with the CEO's wife. Daniel moved toward the door, then turned back. And Jennifer, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. You'll get nothing beyond what the prenup specifies. This house, the cars, the lifestyle you've enjoyed, all mine. You'll be lucky to get supervised visitation. You can't keep me from my daughters? Your daughters, Daniel repeated, the words like acid. You finally admit it. They're your daughters and Richard's, not mine. Never mine. The devastation truly hit when Daniel moved to the guest house the next morning. Emma found him packing, her intelligent eyes taking in the suitcases, the boxes of office supplies, the systematic dismantling of their family. Dad? Her voice was small, younger than her 12 years. Mom said you're leaving. Why? Daniel's hands stilled on the photograph he'd been wrapping. Emma's 8th birthday, the whole family at the beach. His smile in that picture was genuine. Unaware. That man had been happy. That man had been a fool. It's complicated, sweetheart. Is it because of Uncle Richard? Emma's question froze his blood. I saw him here last week when you were in Chicago. Mom said he was just helping with the broken dishwasher, but they were upstairs for a long time. Daniel knelt before his daughter. No, not his daughter. Jennifer and Richard's daughter. And looked into her brown eyes. Richard's eyes. How had he never noticed? What you saw wasn't appropriate, Emma. Your mother and I are having serious problems. Are you divorcing? Yes. Emma's composure cracked. Is it my fault? Because I've been getting in trouble at school? Because my grades dropped? No, baby, no. Daniel pulled her into his arms reflexively. This child who wasn't his, who he'd loved completely. This is about choices your mother made. Nothing about this is your fault. But even as he said it, Daniel felt the lie. Because Emma wasn't his child, none of them were. And continuing to pretend, continuing to father children who belonged to the man who'd betrayed him. How could he do that? How could he look at them without seeing Richard? Without remembering Jennifer's deception? Emma pulled back, studying his face. You're different. You look at me different now. I'm just tired. You're lying. Her voice hardened, growing distant. Everyone's lying. What aren't you telling me? The truth sat on Daniel's tongue like poison. But she was 12. How could he destroy her world with information this devastating? So instead, he lied again. Your mother and I just need space. I'll still see you girls. Emma stood, her expression closing off. Fine, whatever. I need to get ready for school anyway. She left without looking back, and Daniel wondered if that was the moment he lost her forever. Richard Hayes arrived at Crawford Pharmaceuticals at 8:43 a.m., completely unprepared for the security guard waiting at his parking spot. "Mr. Hayes, I need you to come with me." Richard frowned, confused. "What's this about? I have experiments running." "Your badge has been deactivated. You're being terminated effective immediately." The walk through the building was humiliating. Colleagues stared as security escorted him past the labs, past the break room where he'd shared countless coffee breaks and departmental gossip. In HR, a stone-faced woman pushed papers across the desk. "Sign here. Your personal items will be mailed. Your final paycheck will be deposited according to standard schedule. Your health insurance ends at midnight tonight." "I don't understand. What did I do? I have tenure here. I have active research grants." "This is an at-will termination. Crawford Pharmaceuticals is under no obligation to provide explanation. I want to speak to someone in executive leadership. This is insane." The HR representative's expression shifted slightly, something like pity crossing her features. "Mr. Hayes, I strongly suggest you sign the papers and leave quietly. Trust me when I say you don't want to escalate this." But Richard did escalate. He demanded meetings, threatened legal action, called his union representative. Which is how, 2 hours later, he found himself in a conference room facing Daniel Crawford himself. Recognition dawned slowly. "Danny? Danny Crawford? Jesus, I didn't know you worked here." "I don't work here," Daniel interrupted coldly. "I own here. Crawford Pharmaceuticals. My name, my company. The company that's employed you for 8 years while you fucked my wife and fathered my children." The color drained from Richard's face. "Danny, listen. You will address me as Mr. Crawford in this building, and you will explain to me why I shouldn't destroy you completely." Richard's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. "Finally, how long have you known?" 6 months of investigation. The DNA test came back last week. All 3 girls. 0% probability I'm their father. Congratulations, Richard. You have 3 daughters. You're just not going to get to enjoy them. You can't keep me from my kids. They're not your kids legally. I'm listed as father on every birth certificate. You're nothing but a sperm donor with delusions. Daniel leaned forward. "But here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these termination papers without contest. You're going to leave California entirely. I'm thinking Alaska or maybe Montana. Somewhere far from my family. And in exchange, I won't file criminal charges for fraud, won't sue you for emotional damages, and won't blacklist you from every pharmaceutical company in North America." "That's insane." "You can't force me to relocate." "No, but I can make staying here impossible. I have documentation of every hotel visit, every lunch date, every text message from that burner phone. I have evidence you've been conducting your affair on company time, using company resources. I can bury you, Richard. Or you can take the severance package I'm offering, 6 months' salary and a neutral reference, and disappear." Richard's face twisted with rage and desperation. "Jennifer will never let you keep the girls from me. Jennifer doesn't get a vote anymore. She'll be lucky to afford an apartment after the divorce. My lawyers are the best money can buy, and they're hungry." Daniel stood. "You have 24 hours to accept the offer. After that, I go scorched earth." The real confrontation with Jennifer happened 3 days later, after the girls had discovered the truth in the cruelest possible way. Emma had found the DNA test results in Daniel's office while looking for printer paper for a school project. She'd read them, understood them, and told her sisters. Daniel came home from a meeting with his lawyers to find all 3 girls in the living room, Emma clutching the papers, Lily crying, Sophie looking confused and terrified. "You're not our dad?" Emma's voice shook. "These tests, they say you're not our biological father." Jennifer rushed in from the kitchen. "Emma, give those to me. You had no right." "Is it true?" Emma's question cut through her mother's protests. "Is Uncle Richard our real dad?" The silence answered everything. Sophie began to sob, and Daniel's heart, the organ he'd thought was already completely broken, shattered into new, smaller pieces. "This is your fault," Jennifer hissed at Daniel. "You left those where they could find them." "My fault?" Daniel's voice rose. "My fault? You cheated on me for 15 years. You passed another man's children off as mine. You destroyed our family, Jennifer. This is entirely, completely, 100% your fault. You were never here. You chose work over us every single time. I built a company to support my family, to give you this house, this life, everything you wanted. We wanted you, Emma screamed. We wanted our dad home, but he was always gone, always working, always choosing everything over us. She threw the papers at Daniel. And now you're choosing to leave because we're not really yours? Because biology matters more than 12 years of being my father? Daniel staggered back as if struck. Emma, that's not... Yes, it is. You found out we're not your real daughters, and suddenly you don't want us anymore. You're just like everyone else. You only care when it's convenient. That's not fair, Daniel said weakly. What's not fair is you punishing us for what Mom did. Lily's voice joined in, thick with tears. We didn't ask to be born. We didn't choose this. Jennifer moved between Daniel and the girls protectively. Daniel, you need to leave. You're upsetting them. I'm upsetting them? You destroyed their entire sense of identity. You lied to them for their whole lives. Don't scold my daughters. Jennifer's voice rose to a shriek. You have no right anymore. They're not your responsibility. Take care of your own. She stopped abruptly, realizing what she'd said, but it was too late. The words hung in the air like poison gas. The girls stared at their mother in horror. Daniel felt something cold and final settle in his chest. Take care of my own, he repeated quietly. Finally, the truth. They were never mine. They're yours and Richard's, your daughters, your responsibility. He looked at Emma, at Lily, at Sophie, memorizing their faces one last time. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry this happened, but your mother is right. They're her daughters, not mine. He turned and walked out, their crying following him to the car, into his nightmares, into the guilt that would haunt him for years to come. 2 weeks later, Daniel sat in his attorney's office reviewing the final divorce settlement. Jennifer had fought for everything, custody, alimony, child support, but the prenuptial agreement in DNA evidence had demolished her case. She would get minimal support, shared custody only under supervised conditions, and nothing close to the lifestyle she'd enjoyed. There's something else you should know, his attorney, Margaret Whitfield, said carefully. Jennifer and Richard are apparently planning to marry once the divorce is final. He's accepted a position in Oregon. Seems someone made it impossible for him to work in California's pharmaceutical sector. Daniel smiled grimly. Seems reasonable. The girls are struggling. Emma's school called me. Apparently she's required to list me as an emergency contact now. Her grades have dropped significantly. Lily stopped speaking in class. Sophie has been drawing disturbing pictures. That's not my concern anymore. Margaret studied him with sharp eyes. Isn't it? Daniel, those girls love you. You raised them. The law might say you have no obligation, but morally, Daniel laughed bitterly. Where was morality when Jennifer was lying to me for 15 years? Where was morality when Richard was betraying his best friend? Don't talk to me about moral obligations. So you're just going to abandon them? Punish 3 children for their parents' sins? I'm protecting myself. Every time I look at them, I see the lie. I see 15 years stolen from me. I see the family I thought I had revealed as fiction. Daniel stood, gathering his papers. They have 2 biological parents. Let Richard step up. Let him be the father he's always been genetically, but never actually was. But that night, alone in his empty apartment, Daniel pulled up the video on his phone. Sophie's first recital, her gap-toothed smile as she sang off-key. Emma's soccer championship, her fierce determination. Lily's art show, her pride when he'd said her painting was gallery-worthy. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then answered. Daddy? Sophie's small voice broke him. Mommy says you don't want to be our daddy anymore because of the DNA thing. But I don't understand DNA. I just know you're my daddy. You taught me to ride a bike. You check for monsters in my closet. You make the best pancakes. Doesn't that count? Daniel's hand trembled. Sophie, how did you get this number? Emma found it. Daddy, can you come home? Please, I miss you. We all miss you. Sophie, it's complicated. I don't care about complicated. I care about you. You're my daddy. She was crying now. You said you'd always protect me. You promised. Were you lying? The question destroyed him. Had he been lying? What was he protecting by abandoning these children? What was he proving? That Jennifer's betrayal meant more than 12 years of love? That genetics trumped every bedtime story, every scraped knee kissed better, every proud moment shared? Daddy? Sophie's voice was so small. Are you still there? Daniel closed his eyes, seeing clearly for the first time in weeks. Jennifer had betrayed him. Richard had betrayed him. But these children, these three girls who'd done nothing wrong except be born, they hadn't betrayed anyone. They'd loved him completely, trusted him absolutely, believed in him without reservation, and he'd abandoned them for the crime of having the wrong DNA. I'm here, princess, he whispered. Daddy's here, and I'm coming home. Because in the end, the real shock wasn't what Daniel had done to Jennifer and Richard. It was what he'd almost done to himself. Throw away the only thing that had ever truly mattered. Three daughters who loved him, who chose him, who made him a father in every way that actually counted. The company, the revenge, the justice, none of it meant anything compared to Sophie's voice calling him daddy, compared to Emma needing him despite his failures, compared to Lily waiting for him to come back. Jennifer's lover might work somewhere else now. Jennifer might face the consequences of her choices. But Daniel's real shock came from realizing that being a father had nothing to do with owning companies or DNA percentages or revenge. It had everything to do with showing up, with choosing love over biology, with being the man three little girls believed him to be. He grabbed his keys and drove toward the house, toward his daughters, toward the family he'd almost destroyed by caring more about genetics than the 12 years they'd built together. Jennifer had been right about one thing. He'd chosen wrong too many times, prioritized wrong, let pride blind him to what mattered. But that ended now. Whatever came next, whatever legal battles awaited, whatever complicated relationship he'd have to navigate with Jennifer and Richard, none of it mattered as much as three girls who needed their father, the father he'd been. The father he'd always been. Biology be damned. Daniel Crawford stood at the edge of the soccer field, watching Emma execute a perfect corner kick that curved into the goal with the precision of a guided missile. At 15, she'd grown into a formidable athlete, her determination on the field matching the fierce intelligence she brought to everything else in life. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Emma's eyes immediately searched the bleachers until they found him. Her grin was pure sunshine. He raised his fist in celebration, and she mimicked the gesture, their private signal since she was 8 years old. Some things he'd learned transcended biology entirely. Dad, did you see Emma's goal? Sophie crashed into his legs, 11 years old now and still his most enthusiastic hugger. It was amazing. She totally destroyed Riverside's defense. I saw, princess. It was perfect. Daniel ruffled her hair, earning a mock protest about messing up her carefully arranged braids. Lily appeared more sedately, sketchbook tucked under her arm as always, 12 years old and already fielding interest from art schools. I got the whole sequence. The approach, the kick, the celebration. I'm thinking of doing a series on athletic motion for my portfolio. That sounds incredible, Lily Bean. Dad! She groaned at the childhood nickname, but didn't actually protest. That was progress. 3 years ago, she'd barely spoken to him at all. The reconciliation hadn't been easy or quick. That first night after Sophie's phone call, Daniel had returned to find 3 devastated daughters and a wife who'd weaponized his DNA discovery to justify her betrayal. The conversation had been brutal, honest, and necessary. He'd apologized to the girls, really apologized, not the hollow adult platitudes, but genuine acknowledgement of his failures. I was hurt and angry at your mother, and I let that hurt make me forget that you 3 are the best thing that ever happened to me. DNA doesn't make a father. Love does. Choice does. Showing up does. And I'm choosing you every day for the rest of my life. The custody battle had been vicious. Jennifer had fought dirty, accusing Daniel of using his wealth and influence to manipulate the situation. But the courts had seen through her tactics, especially once Emma, at 13, had formally requested to testify. "He's my dad," she told the judge, her voice steady despite her tears. "He's been my dad since I was born. He taught me to read, helped me with math homework, coached my first soccer team even though he didn't know anything about soccer. When I had nightmares, he was the one who sat with me until I fell asleep. When I won my first tournament, he was prouder than anyone. That's my dad, not the guy who contributed DNA, the guy who contributed everything else." Lily and Sophie had echoed similar sentiments. The judge had granted Daniel primary custody, with Jennifer receiving alternating weekends and holidays. Richard's parental rights had been terminated at his own request. He'd married Jennifer in a quiet Oregon ceremony and made it clear he wanted no legal connection to Crawford's kids. Daniel had felt nothing but relief. Crawford Pharmaceuticals had continued to thrive under his leadership, but Daniel had restructured his priorities completely. He'd promoted his COO to handle day-to-day operations and reduced his own hours to 40 per week maximum. No more 18-hour days. No more choosing board meetings over soccer games. No more missing what actually mattered. "Mr. Crawford?" a voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find a nervous-looking man in his 30s, hand extended. "I'm Mike Patterson, Riverside's coach. Just wanted to say your daughter is phenomenal. We've been watching her progress for years. Has she considered playing for the state select team?" "She has. Tryouts are next month. With her skills, she's a lock. You've done an amazing job with her." Daniel felt the familiar warmth those words always brought now. "Thank you. She's done the amazing job. I just try to keep up." After the game, they went to their traditional post-game dinner spot, a burger joint that definitely didn't meet Jennifer's previous standards for appropriate dining, but made the girls happy. Emma recounted every play while Lily sketched the restaurant's interior and Sophie built elaborate structures from French fries. "Mom texted," Emma said casually between bites. "She and Richard are coming to town next month. She wants to have dinner." Daniel kept his expression neutral. "How do you feel about that?" Emma shrugged. "I don't know. It's weird. She's my biological mother, but it doesn't feel like she's my mom anymore, you know? Like that role got filled already. By you, kind of. Your dad and mom. I'm not trying to replace your mother, Em. You're not replacing her. She left the role empty, and you filled it. There's a difference." Emma's eyes, still Richard's eyes but no longer a painful reminder, met his steadily. "She made her choices. We made ours. We chose you." Lily looked up from her sketchbook. "I'll go to dinner with her. It's not about forgiveness or whatever. It's just, I guess I'm curious, like, she's part of my story, even if she's not part of my everyday life." Sophie frowned. "Do we have to? She always makes me feel bad, like I'm supposed to be sadder that she left. But I'm not sad. We're happy now." "No one has to do anything they're uncomfortable with," Daniel assured her. "Your relationship with your mother is yours to define. All of you. No pressure, no guilt." This was the complicated territory they'd been navigating for 3 years. Jennifer had moved to Oregon with Richard, started over, gotten pregnant with their 4th child, a son they'd named Jason. She saw the girls occasionally, maintained sporadic contact, but the distance was emotional as much as geographical. She'd made her choice to prioritize her affair, her new life, and the consequences included losing her daughter's trust and daily presence. Richard had never attempted contact. Daniel suspected guilt prevented it, or perhaps Jennifer had forbidden it. Either way, the man who'd been both best friend and betrayer had become simply no one, a ghost from a painful chapter. "How's the company stuff going?" Emma asked, demonstrating the business acumen she'd been developing. She'd spent several afternoons at Crawford Pharmaceuticals, shadowing executives, asking sharp questions about operations and ethics. She'd declared her intention to attend business school and eventually join the company, not because Daniel wanted her to, but because she genuinely developed a passion for pharmaceutical innovation. "We're launching a new diabetes medication next quarter. The trials have been extremely promising." "That's the one Dr. Martinez was heading, right? The one you pulled me aside to explain when I was working on my science project?" "The very same," Daniel smiled, remembering 14-year-old Emma's genuine fascination with the drug development process. Your questions about ethical testing protocols actually made me reconsider our IRB procedures. We implemented some changes based on concerns you raised. Emma's face glowed with pride. Really? That's so cool. Lily rolled her eyes affectionately. Nerd. Artist. Both compliments in this family, Daniel interjected. Speaking of which, Lily, the gala committee asked if you'd be willing to display some pieces at next month's charity event. Lily's eyes widened. The Crawford Foundation Gala? The one with, like, actual important people? You're actual important people. But yes, that one. Oh my God, yes. Obviously, yes. Do you know how huge this is for my portfolio? Lily's usual studied calm cracked into pure teenage excitement. Sophie, you have to help me pick which pieces. Only if I can come to the gala too, Sophie negotiated. Obviously you're coming. All of you are coming. It's a family event. A family event where Lily's art is featured like a professional artist. Sophie bounced in her seat. This is amazing. Watching his daughter's excitement, their easy camaraderie, their assumption that they belonged in his world, Daniel felt the familiar ache of gratitude mixed with residual pain. The betrayal still hurt sometimes. The stolen years, the deception, the shattering of trust. Those wounds had scarred even if they'd healed. But the girls hadn't caused those wounds. They'd helped heal them. Therapy had been crucial, both individual and family sessions. Dr. Chen had helped Daniel process his rage, his grief, his sense of stolen identity. She'd also helped him understand that choosing to be their father despite the DNA results wasn't weakness or foolishness. It was the most powerful choice he could make. Love is a choice, Dr. Chen had told him during a particularly difficult session. Every day, parents choose to love their children through difficulties, through challenges, through moments when biology makes things harder, not easier. You're making that choice consciously. Most parents make it unconsciously, but the choice is the same, and it's the choice that matters. The girls had been in therapy too, processing their mother's betrayal, their biological father's rejection, and their adoptive father's initial abandonment and subsequent return. Emma had raged, Lily had withdrawn, Sophie had clung. They'd all had to learn new ways of trusting, new definitions of family. Now, 3 years later, they'd built something real. Not perfect. Emma still had moments of anger about the whole situation. Lily still struggled with feeling caught between her parents. Sophie still had anxiety about people leaving. But they'd built something authentic. Daniel paid the check, and they headed to the car. The girls arguing about music choices with familiar ease. His phone buzzed. A message from Margaret Whitfield, his attorney and now friend. Saw Emma's game stats online. That kid is phenomenal. You should be proud. He texted back, every day. At home, their house, smaller than the mansion he'd shared with Jennifer but somehow fuller, buzzed with activity. Emma disappeared to shower and call friends. Lily spread her art supplies across the dining table to work on gala pieces. Sophie recruited Daniel for a board game marathon. Later, after Sophie had won 3 games of checkers through questionable rule interpretations and been tucked into bed with the usual monster closet check routine, Daniel stood in the hallway looking at the photos lining the walls. He'd kept some from the Jennifer years. The girls' milestones were still their milestones, regardless of the marriage's implosion. But he'd added new photos too. Emma holding her regional soccer trophy. Lily at her first real gallery showing, beaming beside her exhibited work. Sophie's gap-toothed grin at her 5th grade graduation. All 3 girls on the courthouse steps the day the adoption became official. That had been Daniel's final move, legally adopting the daughters he'd already claimed as his own. Emma, Lily, and Sophie Crawford, not just by circumstance, but by law, permanent, irrevocable, chosen. Jennifer had contested it initially, but the girls' testimonies had been unshakable. Emma had been particularly fierce. He's been our father for 15 years. We want it to be legal. We want his name. We want it permanent. The judge had granted the adoption with unusual warmth. It's clear these children have a father who loves them and whom they love in return. Biology is irrelevant in the face of such obvious, devoted family bonds. Adoption granted. That day had felt like winning something more valuable than any business deal, any pharmaceutical breakthrough, any revenge against Jennifer and Richard. That day had felt like becoming who he was always meant to be. Emma appeared in the hallway, hair wet from her shower. "Hey, Dad, can we talk for a minute?" They settled in the living room, Daniel's heart rate accelerating slightly. 3 years in, he still feared the moment they might change their minds, might decide biology did matter after all. "So, I've been thinking," Emma started, tucking her feet under herself on the couch, "about the whole thing with Mom and Richard, about how it all went down." "Okay," Daniel said carefully. "I'm not excusing what Mom did. It was horrible, and she broke your trust in the worst way possible. But," Emma paused, choosing words carefully, "but I think I understand now why it hurt you so much when you found out about the DNA. It wasn't just about us not being biologically yours. It was about feeling like your whole life had been a lie, right?" Daniel nodded, throat tight. "The thing is, it wasn't all a lie. We were real. Our relationship was real. Every soccer game you attended, every scraped knee you bandaged, every homework crisis you solved, that was all real." Emma's eyes shimmered with tears. "Mom and Richard created us biologically, but you created us in every other way that matters. You made us who we are." Let me finish. When you came back after that night Sophie called you, when you chose us over being hurt, that's when I realized what real love looks like. Not the easy kind that happens automatically because of blood. The hard kind that you choose even when you're broken. The kind that says, "You're mine," even when genetics say otherwise. Emma wiped her eyes. "So I just wanted to say thank you for choosing the hard love, for being our real dad." Daniel pulled her into a hug, this fierce, brilliant, not biological daughter who'd somehow become the best parts of him. "Thank you for letting me, for giving me a second chance when I didn't deserve one." "You deserved it," Emma mumbled into his shoulder. "You always deserved it." Later, after Emma had gone to bed and the house had settled into quiet, Daniel stood in his home office looking at the framed photo on his desk. All three girls at the adoption ceremony holding their new birth certificates, grinning at the camera. Beside it sat another frame, this one holding Emma's words from her courtroom testimony, which she'd written out in calligraphy and given him last Father's Day. "He's my dad, not the guy who contributed DNA, the guy who contributed everything else." His phone buzzed one final time, a message from an unknown number, which he almost deleted before recognizing the Oregon area code. Richard's message was brief. "Saw Emma's soccer stats online. She's using my height and athletic genes well. You're welcome for the genetics. Glad someone's putting them to good use." Daniel stared at the message for a long moment, feeling the old rage flicker and die. Richard could claim genetics. Daniel had everything else: the daily reality, the trust, the love, the actual relationship. He deleted the message without responding. Some people would never understand that fatherhood wasn't about chromosomes or physical traits passed down. It was about showing up, choosing love, doing the work. Richard had contributed DNA. Daniel had contributed life. There was no comparison. Daniel turned off his office light and headed upstairs, pausing to check on each daughter. Emma sprawled across her bed with soccer equipment scattered everywhere. Lily curled up with a sketchbook still in her hands, Sophie hugging the stuffed elephant he'd given her for her second birthday. His daughters, his family, his life. Not because of biology, but because of choice. The choice he made every day to be their father. The choice they made every day to be his daughters. And that, Daniel had learned, was the only DNA that actually mattered. The one you created together through love, through commitment, through showing up even when everything hurt. Jennifer's cheating had tried to destroy him. The DNA revelation had nearly succeeded. But in the end, the real shock wasn't what he'd done to his cheating wife or her lover. It was what 3 little girls had done to his broken heart. Put it back together into something stronger, better, and more real than anything biology alone could ever create. They'd made him a father, the kind who knew that family wasn't about who created you, but who chose you, who stayed, who loved you through the worst revelations and came out the other side still holding on. That was the shocking truth Jennifer would never understand. Love was always stronger than betrayal. Choice was always more powerful than genetics. And Daniel Crawford, CEO, entrepreneur, and father to three extraordinary daughters, had finally learned what actually mattered.